Hello and welcome back to ITWeb TV at the Security Summit 2024. I'm joined by Professor Hoda Alkhzaimi. Well, I got that one right, good. But I'm not going to try and do any of the titles because they're far too long and impressive for me. Okay. So Hoda, I'll let you introduce yourself and where you're from, the different bodies you represent and work for.
Perfect. Thank you, Adrian, for having me and ITWeb and for having such a vibrant, I would say, security technology sphere in Johannesburg. My name is Hoda Alkhzaimi. I'm a professor in engineering in NYU Abu Dhabi. I'm as well the founder and director for EmirateSec, a technology-focused prototyping center focusing on emerging technologies acceleration related to crypto, security, AI, and the next wave of deep technologies that are coming.
Okay.
I'm the co-chair for the Global Future Council for Cybersecurity in the World Economic Forum, as well as the founding partner in Blueverse, which is a fund that is focusing on deep technology as well.
Okay, wow, I'm glad you covered all that because I don't think I've got enough room on this card.
No.
Okay, so let's start. Your talk focuses on tech sovereignty, and I think that's a very interesting topic. I mean, the world's kind of very divided, seemingly, at the moment. I think it may change given the American elections. We've had a lot of elections this year, but it's something that's often mentioned by local government IT officers is they'll talk about how do we use our own technology rather than relying on technology from the US or from China or other places. So how big a global issue is this? Like I say, we talk about it locally. And I guess given the US domination or domination of US companies globally in the tech space, how realistic is it that other nations could become self-sufficient in those regards? Or is it more of a kind of gradual shift? I mean, do you think it's ever really going to happen?
I would say it's a trick question given the climate that we're living at the moment. Tech sovereignty is rising to be the next fourth power to sovereignty in general.
Okay.
It has its political roots. It's not anymore, the segregation between technology development and technologies, I would say, science and development initiatives. And their segregation from the political power is not, I would say, a constructive approach to take at the moment.
Sure.
Because we are living in a reality that keeps on telling us that if you want to have political sovereignty, you have to have a governance over the way you are developing technologies internally, because it would arise or it would manifest to having security issues, national security issues on the longer run. Mm-hmm. We have seen the misinformation campaigns that are happening on a massive kind of a global atmosphere since 2017, affecting elections in developed countries. And as well, we have seen the bias controlling campaigns that are also being built through a different emerging technologies concept. The mass surveillance programs as well that has been built because specific nations around the world would have access to technology development and not technology deployment. This is why we keep on stressing that there is a huge difference in between deploying technology and emerging sphere and between developing this technology. And in the moment kind of climate, it's very important, not just from economic perspective, because if you develop technology, then you contribute to your economic competitiveness and
Sure.
contribute to the innovation cycle and having better total factor of productivity, which would allow you to, I would say, grow out of a crisis, economic crisis, sooner than other nations. And this has been proven in the past, I would say, pandemic crisis that we had and the past economic crisis that we have. Mm-hmm. There has been a survey that has been put forward by the Australian Policy Institute that say that we had over 60 different critical technologies and deep technologies under development at the moment. And unfortunately, the world is focused only around 3 or 4 portfolios of them. So we have to be really mindful of what I call the echo chambers that would push nations around the world to focus on specific technologies and even dilute the conversation around those technologies by pushing those nations to consider deployment of technologies rather than developing them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So then I think one of the topics I wanted to talk about, it's something that I guess as we see that kind of east-west divide kind of amplifying, we've also seen it with the chip wars, the silicon kind of wars.
Yeah.
But I think something that we've seen here, and I think South Africa and probably Africa is geographically located halfway between China and halfway between the US. We've got data centers from Microsoft, we've got data centers from AWS, we've got data centers from Huawei and Alibaba. So we've got both sides. We're kind of probably the most, and there's obviously a lot of developing opportunity here for digital development and digital growth. So I think we're kind of a very fertile kind of playground really to see how, or battleground is probably the better word. But the one thing that I wanted to touch on is this idea of a splinter net, which I think we saw under the previous US administration, that there was to be no Chinese technology in communications to within their own country, but within connections to their international entities, whether that's their embassies or whatever their case is. So yeah, I mean, how realistic do you think the idea of a splinter net is between those two nations?
I think it's hard to grasp the motivation behind Splint Internet because in the wider scheme of things, it goes against the democratic notions of what we are calling for in terms of access to information, human rights of access to information, the freedom to have that global access to information. And this is why Internet has been created from the get-go. And I think building a global as well alliance against Internet censorship in different regions has been a continuous effort by many academics, many technology developers across the map. We've seen environments like Tor, for example, which would allow you to access the mass internet without being, I would say, censored or without being subjected to being in a specific social ranking paradigm, as we have seen China trying to impose that kind of a system. And when China tried to impose it, the world was against that kind of notion. The world was against that kind of culture on the premise that we have to defend the human rights and we have to defend equal access to information. So now, fast forward to 2024, we are definitely regressing in terms of what we are advocating for when we are developing the new paradigms of technologies. And we have to be really careful of this. And I think this is why within today's ecosystem, we have to be mindful of who is developing the technology and who's making the big decisions around what to be developed and what to be pushed towards consumer hands. In the past, I think in the early 50s and 2000s, it used to be actually in the early 70s and until 2000, I would say mid-2000, 2005, it was like an equal process where you find industries, governments, and civil society all being involved in the decision-making process. But I think we have been, since the revolution of emerging technologies that has been happening, IoT, quantum computing, AI, and especially the boom of the revenue that is being expected to be reaped by different regions, we are seeing a polarized view and a dominant power that exists within the hands of technology developers. And this is why I think if we continue to call for a fragmented internet or internet that would have different jurisdictions because of the different geopolitical tensions that are rising between different nations, and then we will see a decentralized movement of the internet. Decentralized in a sense that the people, the civil society, maybe they will try to address a different future to the internet where the build-up of the different I would say, communities within the internet will be in the hands of the user, similar to what we're seeing in the decentralized finance space and the crypto space and all other spaces. This kind of co-ownership of development and whole development cycle at the hand of the user is something that we have seen rising in the past 10 years, especially after Snowden, I would say, revelations, and after Facebook, Cambridge Analytica kind of incident, when people decided to say that we want to be owning the monetization aspects of our private data, and we need to control our digital presence. And I think this is the healthy way of thinking of it, because the digital presence of a persona online is supposed to be a sole ownership of that persona, of that person. And your exposure to the different realities of the internet shouldn't be mandated by any political agenda or any kind of, technology, I would say, sovereignties issue that exists at the moment.
Okay. So we're here at the Security Summit. This kind of world where this kind of tech sovereignty is going, what do you think are the cybersecurity implications of what is likely to happen?
I think one of the main issues that we have is that we don't have technology governance on a global level. And whatever we will face today in terms of security resilience or security in governance is going to stem from that fact. The fact that we are standing on a mountain of issues on whatever new technologies that we are trying to address the threat landscape of at the moment is going to be a complex matter. And this is what we're seeing today in cybersecurity when we're dealing with emerging technologies, with AI, with quantum, with IoT, for example, with biosynthesis, a kind of application of cybersecurity components, of digital components. And you are standing on the pyramid of many other issues that you did not address in the past.
Sure.
And until we have a global governance to cybersecurity, we will not have that kind of stance of what we call at the moment cyber resilience. So to me, when we define cyber resilience, which is the ultimate goal that we have to go for, it's the ability to go through that kind of adaptable auto-recovery mode without you having to be on the stand 24 hours, 7 days a week, which means that you have to trust your system to have this kind of auto-immunity when it will be attacked, when it will be exposed to threats, and it will rise out of this threat model. So, and definitely we have so much to do, but the opportunity landscape as well is huge, because it's a tipping point that we are forecasting on a global level. And we are seeing cybersecurity investments are rising to be over $3 trillion USDs, because we're trying to create new algorithms, new technologies, new clusters of solutions around new technologies that are rising at the moment. And I'm hoping for, hopefully, a deeper, I would say, call of addressing the need for research and development units within own clusters that are responsible of cybersecurity.
Okay. What would be your advice to African governments about emerging technologies and the kind of cyber implications? But I think let's also add in there to CISOs and security professionals. So I realize two-parted question, but what's your kind of advice to government? What's your advice to security professionals?
So my advice to leaders, either in the government sector or in the corporate sphere, is to be in control of the technology development life cycle and understand where does it come from and what motivations exist behind developing a technology. It's very important to grasp this ramification, because end of the day, the development cycle of technology is not a constant, I would say, curve. As we have seen with the development of 5G, for example, it has been de-accelerated because of the political sanctions of technological inventorship, I would say, around the world for Huawei. We're seeing something similar at the moment, as you have just highlighted, when it comes to semiconductors industry, where the acceleration of building hardware accelerators for AI is being pushed back because of this sanction war that exists on a technology sphere, and it is justifiable from economic perspective because certain nations want to be beating other nations to the revenue cycle. But this should not leave us in the back, I would say, stages of this whole global play. We need to take front lines, I would say, seat by making sure that we are building our priorities right when it comes to developing technologies. We have to be mindful of the echo chambers. We shouldn't be running behind the trends, but we should plan out our horizons in the next, I would say, 10 years, 100 years, and in between when we are outlining the priorities that we have to focus on. The pursuit of a resilient cyberspace is not just about cyber. It's actually about all interdisciplinary fields that are related to cyber. And it's also about developing the technologies. And not just, if there is one thing that you shouldn't outsource, it's your cyberspace.
Sure.
And you should have a total governance of how it's built and how it's being governed in the current scenario. It's a conversation that you want to keep at the leadership table. So if you are a CISO, make sure that this conversation is standing with the board of the corporate. If you are part of the government, make sure that this is also something that's standing with the cabinet affairs of the government to make sure that you are prioritizing your technological, I would say, capital around emerging technologies. And let's hopefully hear something beyond AI and beyond quantum computing, which I know that's very important. The transitions in adopting these technology or deploying them in the sphere is very important, because during this transition period is when you are expected to be the weakest. Well, if you are not ready, your readiness is not supposed to be for your post-quantum period, but actually for your transition period, which is quite important. And I would say I'm looking forward to see the next new technologies that will be built out of emerging markets, because I think we have higher efficiencies when it comes to technological development within emerging markets, and we are still standing to develop a hub of new innovations across board, hopefully.
Okay, so you mentioned not to talk about quantum, but I have one very small question about quantum.
Tell me.
Just because I'm fascinated. So I spoke to one of the local bank's chief information security officers a couple of weeks ago. I asked him about quantum, and he said 2 years ago when he started, everyone was telling him it was 10 years away, sorry. Now, when he's talking to these kind of experts, they're saying it's sort of 3 to 5 years. What's your take on when, I think Q0 was the term he used, when we actually get to the reality of quantum computing?
So rather than putting the timeline to it, I would say that it would all depend on our hardware readiness. We are all being put into this expectation mode because we depend on the global hardware developers to put in the quantum hardware into market and make it a reality, actually. Because today you do have quantum accelerators, but they're more of like simulators.
Sure.
And you do have a lot of quantum software around. You do have quantum post-quantum algorithms that are available for security aspects for the crypto kind of cluster. But we don't have the hardware. So if you don't have the hardware, it's kind of hard to test your security. When I say we have it, I meant we have it in a commercial zone and not in a testing environment. The prototypes that exist is quite expensive to maintain, because you have to keep them within specific cooling structures. These cooling structures themselves, they would cost you millions of dollars. As well, the fragile state of the quantum computing structure, like if you subject them to any mobility or movement, then they could endanger the quantum state that you are developing. So I think there is a lot of innovation to happen within the quantum state. And you would ask me, I've met one of the global CEOs who are responsible of delivering the next, I would say, architecture for quantum hardware last year. And within last 2 year meeting in Davos, the statement was that next year in 2025 we will put in our quantum hardware into market.
Okay. Wow.
This year we're supposed to see the quantum hardware. I would think it would be a bit difficult given the geopolitical tensions that are arising around semiconductors kind of readiness, because it affects that, right? So it's not a straight answer, because every geopolitical tension induces sanctions. Sanctions affect technology development. Technology development affects, because we are in a globalized zone, right? You have, pieces of these chips developed in Taiwan. The design, architecture, verification is in Netherlands. So, I mean, any kind of sanctions or geopolitical tension that affect these zones will slow down the delivery process of this hardware as we are seeing it. And I'm seeing at the moment that there will be a slow kind of base to the delivery cycle of the quantum hardware. So we might see it definitely within the next 4 years.
Okay.
Prior to 2030, hopefully, if everything went to map. But it's not going to be the realistic execution of a quantum hardware, in my opinion. Because, again, the way technology that are being put into market today, I think it comes to us in a re-release versions rather than in a ready, complete version. The reason why I'm saying this is that, don't you think that building computing architectures that exist within a heavily complex cooling structure is pushing us to our mainframe days rather than our edge computing kind of platforms?
Yeah.
So I would really, really love to call into the diversity of computing architectures. Why don't we think of other forms of computing, alternative to quantums, that we should as well advocate for, which is membrane computing and edge computing, rather than just going for cloud quantum computing as well. Yeah.
Hoda, that has been fascinating. I believe your keynote is tomorrow,
yes,
Wednesday, so I'll be looking forward to that. Ladies and gentlemen, that's been Professor Hoda Alkhzaimi.